So, shall we start the interview now? I would like to thanks for come to Shanghai Forum on the Fudan University, and I would like to most of my questions today were regarding of the internationalization of the Chinese currency. So, I would like to know at the beginning, what do you think the Chinese currency, which role do the Chinese currency plays in the international currency system?
It can only be a growing role, and let me say why I believe that the Chinese currency is asked to play a growing role internationally. China represents 9% of global trade, only second to the US.
Yes.
And the expectations are that already by next year, 1/3 of this trade will be done in its own currency. That is why I have also been very keen to come to the Shanghai Forum, and why I am also keen to come back to Shanghai as often as possible to see the development, because Shanghai plays an outstanding role in this development of the internationalization of its currency. And we have most recently seen the opening of direct trading in Shanghai between the euro and renminbi, and I think this is a very important development, since it is a development that is in the stream of opening up the Chinese currency.
Yes, okay. And we all know in China that the EU is very successful on to launch the euro currency. So, do you think is there any experience that China can learn from the EU experience?
I think there is one area where I think Europe's experience can assist the drive for opening up the Chinese currency, and that is the experience in deepening and integrating markets. You know that your authorities want to diversify the products which are denominated in renminbi. They want to deepen the capital markets. We have seen recently that bond issuance along a whole series of maturities has increased. And for that you also need very efficient payments infrastructure systems. And that is the area where I would say Europe also offers some experience it can share with China. And also it will be interesting for China not to only depend on products and know-how that is coming from the most developed capitalist area, the US, but also seeing how resilient European infrastructure in payment systems have been during the crisis, and this could be an area of stronger cooperation in the future between China and Europe.
Yeah, exactly. That is also our recommendation to the governments, not only look at the US but also the EU. So there are many talk in China that the internationalization of the Chinese currency will provide some opportunity. But today I will ask you another side. Which risk and challenge do you think that the internationalization of the Chinese currency?
Well, I said already in the past during conferences concerning the internationalization of the renminbi that this does not come without challenges. We should also not expect that there would not be increased volatility in some market segments. And that was exactly a couple of days before you saw, for example, the exchange rate having increased volatility and having again a sense that it would not only be a one-way direction which the currency could take, but it would be really two-way risk. And I think this is part of the intention. If you want to internationalize, you expose yourself to more volatility, and in that respect, the price finding also is more accurate, yes. And you will have, in the end, the market forces taking over a larger role over purely centrally directed capital markets, and I think that will, in the end, be a better allocation of capital. A better allocation of capital will increase the sustainability of long-term growth, and in the case of China, I think will also contribute to diversify the product markets and to allow also a more smooth transition from the rural populations to the urban populations, which is also, I think, part of the intention of the authorities.
Yeah. Okay, so next question is followed by this question. So how will the internationalization of the Chinese currency affect the Chinese economics and the European economy and the world economy?
It will be a larger integration of the Chinese economy in the global economy.
Yeah.
And therefore interaction will be facilitated, and also not only trade but also in and outward investment.
Okay.
And I have had the occasion to mention yesterday the figures already of the share of Chinese in and outward investment that is rapidly growing.
Yeah.
And I think that again will contribute not only to address the issue of global imbalances in a better way, but it will also allow a better rebalancing of the Chinese economy domestically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. You know that Frankfurt is the financial center in European country, in Europe, and Shanghai is the financial center in China. And do you think the internationalization of the Chinese currency will provide some opportunity for both the cities?
Any internationalization is always to the benefit of both sides. And just as in China there are different financial centers, there are also in Europe different financial centers which each have their comparative advantage.
Yeah.
And each are also to some extent closely interrelated. And you know that the offshore renminbi hubs are not only limited to Frankfurt. You also have within the euro area Luxembourg, which is host to many Chinese banks. You have Paris, which mentioned that they want to play a role as well, and you have of course also London, but which is outside the euro area, obviously. And I would even add on that beyond now the financial centers, you also will have to develop the contacts with academia. And from that point of view, I also see the close interrelation between your university and Goethe University, but there are also, I think, contacts between other universities and University of Luxembourg. There are contacts with France and some other countries. So I think this shows that trade, finance, academia are forerunners of ever closer cooperation.
Do you have some recommendations? What topics should the research done regarding your talk?
I think the areas where we have most in common is where our structures are more in common. And in the area where which I am more closely following, meaning finance and financial stability, I see that the Chinese economy is also largely financed by the banking system as opposed to capital markets. So in the area of the consequences of this in terms of regulation, of prudential surveillance and of monetary policy, I think we have both Europe and China will have probably more interest in looking into the credit aggregates in the old-fashioned style, which has to some extent been abandoned in the US. And I think this is an area where I believe that in the future we could exchange, and certainly in areas like financial stability, the use of macroprudential instruments, I think we can also exchange more in the future.